If you were sailing the Mediterranean 2,000 years ago and saw a fire on the horizon, you would know you were almost there. Not because that fire was your home, but because that fire burned for everyone. It was the Lighthouse of Alexandria, and it was visible farther than any other man-made structure in the world. Behind it stood a city that once became the center of all human civilization. Not Rome, not Athens, not Babylon, Alexandria. Today, we walk there. 332 BC. Egypt has just surrendered without a battle. The Persian satrap opened the gates before the young Macedonian king. Because Egyptians hated Persians more than they feared Greeks, they welcomed Alexander as a liberator. The priests of Memphis crowned him pharaoh. Alexander was 23 years old. He could have taken Egypt's gold and left, but he walked west, toward the Mediterranean Sea, toward a narrow strip of land caught between the sea and the shallow waters of Lake Mareotis. There was nothing there, a fishing village, a few boats. But Alexander saw what others missed: a deep, sheltered coastline, a natural harbor, winds that carried ships west toward Greece and Rome and east toward Persia and India. A crossroads of the world. He said, "Here." Alexander personally took part in designing the city. He wanted streets to run at right angles, a Greek tradition that Hippodamus of Miletus had invented a century earlier. A wide central boulevard, the Canopic Road, was to be 30 meters across, stretching through the entire city from one gate to the other. When it came time to mark the streets, there was no chalk. They used barley flour instead. Alexander himself walked the lines of the future avenues, marking them out on the sand. Then the birds came, thousands of birds, and ate every grain of flour clean. His entourage was alarmed. The priests laughed and said the omen was magnificent. This city would feed the entire world. From every corner of the earth, people would flock here. Alexander smiled and ordered them to continue. A few weeks later, he was gone, to Persia, to India, to the edge of the known world. He never returned to Alexandria, but his body did. And it was buried here, in a golden sarcophagus, at the center of the city he had created. After Alexander's death, his empire broke apart. Egypt fell to Ptolemy, one of his finest generals, clever, educated, far-sighted. The first thing he did was intercept Alexander's funeral procession and bring the body to Alexandria. It was a political act. Whoever owns the remains of the god-conqueror owns his legitimacy. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt for almost 300 years. 3 centuries, longer than the time between the discovery of America and today. They were a strange phenomenon. Greek by blood, Egyptian by office. They built temples to Isis and Osiris and read Homer over dinner. They wore the double crown of the pharaohs and spoke to each other exclusively in Greek. Only the last of the line, Cleopatra VII, bothered to learn the Egyptian language. But for all their contradictions, the Ptolemies did one brilliant thing. They understood that power follows knowledge, and they decided to create the most formidable repository of knowledge in history. Before we speak of the library, we must speak of the Mausoleum. The Mausoleum, literally Shrine of the Muses, it was an institution without precedent in history, neither before nor after, for a very long time. Imagine, the state fully funds 100 of the world's greatest scholars. They have no need to earn a living, no need to teach students, no need to please patrons. They have only one obligation: to think and to write. Free housing, free meals, free servants, free access to the largest collection of texts on the planet. In return, one contract: advance human knowledge. The Mausoleum employed Eratosthenes, who calculated the size of the Earth; Euclid, whose geometry is still taught today; Herophilos, who first described the nervous system; Archimedes, by some accounts, studied here; Apollonius of Rhodes; Callimachus, Zenodotus. This was not a university, it was an accelerator of thought. For the first time in history, humanity created an institution whose sole purpose was to understand the world. The Library of Alexandria. The very name evokes something almost physical, the sensation of irreversible loss. The exact number of scrolls is unknown. Sources cite figures from 400,000 to 700,000. For comparison, the first printing press in Europe would not arrive for another 18 centuries. Before it, every book was a scroll copied by hand. Every scroll, months of labor. 700,000 scrolls. This was the entire written memory of humanity. But how did they get there? The Ptolemies were obsessed with collecting. They sent agents to every market in the known world with one instruction: buy books, any books, all books. Ships entering the port of Alexandria underwent a special inspection. Customs officials confiscated all books on board. They were carried to the library, copied. The copy was returned to the owner. The original stayed in Alexandria. Ptolemy III personally wrote to all the rulers of the Hellenistic world, asking to borrow the state archives of Athens. They gave them to him for a colossal deposit. He sent the deposit. He did not return the books. The library's catalogue had a section called Books Received from Ships. It was the most sophisticated system for the acquisition of knowledge in history. And it worked. But the library was not Alexandria's only wonder. On the island of Pharos, connected to the city by a causeway, stood a lighthouse. Height between 100 and 130 meters. 3 tiers: square, octagonal, round. At the top, a fire reflected by mirrors of polished bronze. Some sources claim its light was visible 50 kilometers out to sea. For nearly 1,000 years, it burned without interruption. Travelers who first saw it from the sea thought they were looking at a small city. This was the 7th wonder of the world. Not a statue, not a temple, an engineering achievement, a lighthouse for the entire world. Alexandria was saying, "We are here. Come." 3 centuries later, a woman walked the streets of Alexandria who knew Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, Ethiopic, Hebrew, and several other languages. Cleopatra VII, the last of the Ptolemies. She was not merely a queen, she was a politician, a negotiator, a strategist. In alliance with Caesar, she held her throne. In alliance with Antony, she defied Rome itself. When Rome finally prevailed, she refused to be led in chains at Octavian's triumph. Cleopatra died in Alexandria, in her city, on her own terms. With her death, the age of the Ptolemies ended. Egypt became a Roman province, but Alexandria remained Alexandria, until the fire came. The story of the Library of Alexandria's destruction is one of the most painful in human history. But the truth is more uncomfortable than the legend. The library did not burn in a single day. It died slowly. The first blow, Caesar. In 48 BC, during street fighting in the harbor, fire spread to warehouses by the water. Perhaps 40,000 scrolls were lost, perhaps more. Then, years of decline. Funding dried up, scholars left, political upheaval. Then, the Christian riots of the 4th century. Pagan temples destroyed, philosophers exiled or killed. Then, the Arab conquest of the 7th century. And then, silence. There was no single villain, no single fire. There was a long, slow death, from indifference, from war, from time. Today, Alexandria is Egypt's second-largest city, 8 million people. Beneath the modern streets, remnants of the ancient city. The catacombs of Kom el-Shukafa, the ruins of the Serapeum, fragments of columns submerged in the harbor. The lighthouse is gone. A medieval fort stands in its place. But in 2002, the Biblioteca Alexandrina opened on the waterfront, a new library. A vast, tilted disc building gazing out to sea. 8 million books, a digital archive of the internet. The idea did not die. It was simply waiting. In a world where every book was written by hand, where knowledge was rare and precious, where one disease could erase a village, and one fire could destroy what centuries had gathered. In that world, people built a place where they decided to collect everything. Not for kings, for everyone. The lighthouse burned for every ship, regardless of its flag. The library accepted every scroll, regardless of its language. The Mausion fed every scholar, regardless of their origin. Alexandria was not a utopia. It was brutal, political, bloody, like any great city. But once, at the mouth of the Nile, on a narrow strip between the sea and the lake, it built a library and a lighthouse so everyone could find it. These were the lost streets.